Well, good morning, and I am so delighted to be joined this morning for this episode of Inside Workplace Wellbeing by Tina Jesso, who's a success coach. I've known Tina over the years and have interviewed her before a couple of years ago, and I know that she's changed in the type of work she's done. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself to us, Tina.
Great. Thank you so much for having me, Dolores. It's always a delight to talk to you. And first of all, hats off to you for your amazing accomplishments in helping so many people all over on developing, a higher level of wellness in the workplace. It's so, so important. And I'm going to talk about me in just a second, but I just really want to put that in there that according to Gallup, like there's so many disengaged people that are in the workforce, right? Like 80% of people feel to some degree disengaged, and up to 16% are actively disengaged, right? So if you can help to, turn the scale, flip it around in terms of those types of numbers, I think that's completely awesome. And me in my corner, that's in essence what I'm doing as well, albeit from a slightly different angle.
Yeah, totally.
So
So, and that is, you're right, you hit the nail on the head. It is about the Gallup and the research, and that really frightens me when I hear about how little staff are engaged. So, yes, tell us about yourself, and thank you for that.
yeah, yeah, you're welcome. So I'm in Ottawa, Canada, and my background comes from working in sales and developing sales teams over 34 years. And I think one of the things that I learned by trial and error, by a lot of education as well, is that essentially your connections to your people and your team are essential, not only to being
Hmm.
successful, right? I'm a success coach, not only being successful financially, but being successful emotionally, right? And building trust and building connections and having fun, right? We want to have fun at work as well as progress, and have mechanisms to work through the tougher times as well, right? Like healthy mechanisms. Just again, once again, that's why your work is so important. So I was doing that for 34 years, grew a number of teams, and my forte was really coaching. And coaching has not just to do with business, of course, because inevitably when you're talking about relationships at work, oftentimes that ends up touching relationships at home and their own personal development and relationships at large. I don't know who said this, but it's so true. How you do one thing is how you do everything,
Mm.
right? So the things that I was learning was helping me in all aspects of my life. So from there, um, I had done really well. I decided to retire from that business, which was awesome. I still retain contacts with most of my colleagues actually from that time. And since then, for a short time, I started an online dating website, as a matter of fact, because I wasn't liking how things were going there, but it was all built on relationships, authentic relationships. And I started doing a lot of coaching around that and getting ready, right, for finding a successful long-term relationship. And then the next evolution of my career was basically coaching and coaching for success, because inevitably, like I just mentioned, in order to have success in our business or in our personal lives, it involves, a lot of self-reflection and certain skills that really are at the core of empathetic relationships, right? And the more that you understand yourself and your role in connecting to other people, well, and you start to make positive changes in that direction with guidance, right? Either from a great speaker like yourself that you've heard at work, or through getting personalized coaching, which is my specialty, you can really see some remarkable progress. And that's essentially what I'm doing right now. I work with some groups, but mostly individuals, to help them have more success in their lives through better relationships.
Oh, and I love that. I took down the word trust there because yeah, so relationship dynamics are huge. Whether we're talking about, as you rightly say, whether it's a one-on-one relationship or whether it's working in a team dynamic, if the trust isn't there, uh, and sometimes the trust, it's just a matter of a miscommunication, isn't it? Two people
Yes.
a situation in a completely different way. So trust, I think, is huge. And, maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. How do you help people that find themselves maybe that they need to change their perspective a little bit in order to see the truth of a situation?
Okay, so I believe that in this field that we can marry kind of science, like science of the mind, with actual strategies and techniques. And one of the science of the mind approaches that I use is through a cognitive assessment called the Excite Core Genius Assessment. So for each of my clients, whether I'm working with individuals, couples, or groups, we go through this assessment. And basically what it does is it helps you understand not only your core as an individual, your core strengths and your challenge areas. It's a 10-minute assessment. It's really fast. I've had some of my clients at a high corporate level. They've done a lot of assessments that take a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of information to sift through. But this one is short and sweet, and it gets to the heart of the matter right away, which I love. So basically, with the assessment, why it works so well in a group is that you can better understand how other people around you think, communicate, and how they cognitively approach things. Are they a long-term thinker or short-term thinker? Are they a person that likes an orderly development in their lives and at work? A step-by-step person who likes to plan in advance? Or are they somebody, for example, who's creative and a little more free-flowing, right? Who lives more in the moment as opposed to being concerned about long-term planning? You have two individuals like that at work or in a couple, the sparks could fly, right? Because of misunderstanding, which to your point a moment ago, which does not create an atmosphere of trust. Whereas if you realize, like I had a couple that were working, they were married for 40 years, Dolores, right? And when we did their, it's called a cognifile, when we did it, the lady said, "Oh my God, he's built that way. That's who he is. I thought he was just trying to piss me off all these years." Right? So how can you foster trust when you have that playing in the back of your mind? So because of that, her frustration just melted away after just one assessment and a discussion on it. Right? And the same thing could apply at work. When you do these types of assessments and you have a better insight, it's like having an open door into somebody's cognitive world. So therefore you can, and if you make an effort to understand that and bring that into your daily actions or your daily communication with them, it can go a long way to promote trust. Not just because you understand them better and maybe you carry less judgment, if I can use that word, because they're different than we are. And by the way, as an aside, this whole cognitive assessment promotes our overall mission is to promote valuing, appreciating, and respecting other people, all people, right? So when you have that open door or that window into how somebody thinks, you can bring a whole different level of communication. So not only are you have that knowledge, but also the more you make an effort to understand how the person is acting and communicating based on who they are, you're making an effort. In other words, you're fostering trust. Right?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And that, as you say, somebody that's with someone for 40 years and they have the aha moment for a very simple thing where basically we're not all the same. And relationships are our biggest triggers for sure. And I use the iceberg diagram, which I know lots of people do, just to show that what's in our subconscious is driving our actions, our reactions, and our behaviors. But we just don't know what's in everyone else's unconscious driving them, because all we see is their actions and reactions. And when we realize, I think that's what I love doing this in teams and bringing in this topic, is that you realize, gosh, maybe that's the way they're built. I mean, it is eye-opening and it's life-changing, and it makes our own life an awful lot easier when we take back the energy of thinking that someone is out to get us when they're really not. They're just made that way.
Exactly. Can I bring another example?
Please do, yes.
Okay, so I was working with a group of probation officers actually in the US to train them on using these cognifiles with young juveniles actually who were in trouble with the law, right? So we were doing that in a family situation so the family can understand each other better. And in one case, a young man, 15 years old, had gotten in trouble with the law, and his mother was a psychologist, interestingly enough. So we did the Cognifiles with both. And then, well, wait, what she realized, and this was such an aha moment for her, is that she was obviously a psychologist, a long-term thinker. Let's plan for the future, a long education, a productive career and all that, which is great. And her son was more of a short-term thinker, and he was not a mental, let's say he was not so much, focused on higher education, but he was manual, right? So it was easy for him to grab like it was a gun, right? Grab a gun or do something like that. And also he was reacting to his parents not understanding him and not seeing him. So maybe a young man like himself could be extremely productive doing some type of, other types of things, a carpenter, a creator of something, using his hands and his body, right? So once she saw that, she said, "Oh my God, I've been pushing him so hard and not understanding him. She said, I feel ashamed of myself as a psychologist for not really realizing that. But doing the assessment really made her see that clearly. So she's able to support him better and help get his point of view as to things that would make him more fulfilled, and then support him based on what he wants and needs. Right?
Wow.
That's great example, right?
That's a great story. It really is. And it's phenomenal, really. It's like it's huge, especially when it comes to parenting. I think when we think we're doing the right thing, but often we're coming from our own judgment
Exactly.
and our own perceptions without, and that's not again, leaving aside the blame and the shame when we God, it's like parenting is a minefield at the best of times rather than adding on guilt and shame for not knowing. But just the
Exactly.
work you're doing is phenomenal. Fair play to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. There's so many examples of how this. So you bring, not only can you bring a cognitive approach, right? So whether it's this, like any type of assessment, or just taking the time to try to figure out how can I relate to my team, for example, because I know you focus on the workplace. Some type of assessment so that you have an idea, have an insight into how everybody works different cognitively, as well as bringing a level of validation, like a kind of like I hear you
Yes, I
approach,
like that.
right? Right. So another example of that, let's say that you have an employee, for example, that flourish. They're very structured, right? They like doing things step by step. They like planning in advance. And the manager kind of knows that this project, which has a short deadline, right, is going to send them in a fluster.
Hmm.
However, if and having had some type of assessment done, knowing that knowledge already, that knowledge is really powerful, right? So what do we do with it? So maybe a validating approach could be, I know, John, we have this project. John, I'm very sorry that it has this short deadline, because I know you prefer to plan and make sure you've got all the tools and all the resources to do a great job. But you know what, to support you in this, I am going to provide this. Is there anything else that I can do, or anything else that you can think of? Or if you do, then let me know, and I'll do everything in my power to make sure that, this works both for you as well as for the company. Something along those lines, you know?
That's wonderful. And it's really working to people's strengths, isn't it? And
Yeah,
that's really where we'll drive up the employee engagement, because we all have the fundamental needs. There again, one of them to feel like we're being heard. And really, actually, as well, even maybe the manager just knows this person, as you say, like maybe they just spot that that's the way they are. But it's actually really feeling felt and known. Then the employee will have a sense of belonging and definitely will
right.
be more engaged and motivated to do the work.
Absolutely. Quick question for you. Do you happen to know, and this is something I read a while ago, so I'm sorry if it's not the exact quote or scenario, but Oprah, what does she say that everybody essentially says to her in one way, shape, or form after an interview? Like, she's interviewed some amazing people, world leaders, as we know, celebrities and all that. What's one common thread that people ask her after the camera closes down?
I don't know. Fulfill us, Tina.
Was I okay?
Oh,
Was
yeah.
that what you needed?
Yeah.
Validation. right? They're
Yeah.
looking for validation.
Mhm.
Everybody, right? So that's just like a beautiful human touch that we can use at any, juncture. And something else is, it's all kind of tied in. How many thoughts do you think we think every day? Because I think, okay, let me just follow through on that. I tend to be a little bit of a squirrel because I'm excited with all the great things that are out there. So how many thoughts on average does the average human have every day?
We have lots of them. I know that I quote this as well, and I just don't have that at the top of my head right now. We have thousands of thoughts, so
Thousands, thousands and thousands.
thousands
So,
of them.
okay, so according to studies, it's around 60,000,
Yeah.
right? But the bigger question is, what percentage of those thoughts are the same thoughts you think every day?
Mm.
Throw me a number. What percentage do you think?
Probably around 90%, is it?
You're perfect. 100%. Okay, 90%. Think about that for a second. If we all thought about that for a second, we have the same thoughts day after day. We're on that hamster wheel day after day. How can we produce different results? If we're not getting the results that we want at work or at home, how can we get different results if everything is the same every day? We have the same thoughts. So, logically speaking, the way we accomplish different results, hopefully improve results, is by paying attention to our thoughts and being aware, right? So, and I'm sure you talked to this as well. Like even before we started today, you did a little breathing, right? To get yourself, into this moment, right? Doing something like you had done, right? To start when we start our day before we get on that hamster wheel, so to speak, where we spend some quiet time. It could be a meditation, it could be a walk or whatever, and focus on, what do we want to accomplish in our day? Do we want to be a more active, uh, empathetic, empathetic listener in our day, right? Do we want that? And if we want that, how are we going to show up? Oh, before I react to my employees or my boss or whatever, I'm going to count to three and I'm going to see if I can choose, a different, seek first to understand before being understood, right? Maybe even have a strategy. Okay, one thing I'm going to try today is I'm going to listen to that person and then I'm going to validate what they said instead of automatically going on that hamster wheel, that 90% of the same thoughts the day before. Instead of getting on that hamster wheel, I'm going to take 3 seconds and I'm going to validate what they just said in some way. Yeah, it sounds like that's a really tough problem that you got there, right? Wow, it sounds like, whatever it is to validate that person, right? Can you tell me more? Right? What can I do to help? Would you like me to help you solve that problem or you just need me to listen? Right? Even valid, because often I'm so guilty of that. I love to solve people's problems, right? And sometimes they don't need them to be solved. Maybe they just
Yeah.
need an empathetic or a sympathetic ear, right?
Mhm.
So just these little small, like micro adjustments, it's amazing what you can. I'm throwing out solutions and stuff, and you didn't even ask. So
No, it's all good.
there you go.
It's all good because what I took down there was, do you want to be an active participant in your day? I think that's a huge question. I mean, that's very beneficial to stop us in our tracks, to stop us getting on the hamster wheel. I think I definitely I took that down and I'd be writing that on a wall somewhere, or not on a wall, on a sticker on a wall somewhere, because exactly it's to break the mental clutter sometimes, to get off the hamster wheel. And that's the hardest thing. And to stop then when we realize we're on the hamster wheel. I think a lot of us suffer from that, especially women. I know not all women, so I'm not generalizing, but
Yes,
then we start going into guilt and shame. Oh, I've done it again. And we're on another hamster wheel. We left this one and we went over to this one. So
right.
find the middle ground, to say yes, and just go center yourself in what you want for the day. How do I want to be the active participant in this day? What do I want to lead from? For sure.
Exactly. Exactly.
Another thing you
So
talked about is,
go ahead.
sorry, is passion. Sorry, I want to get this one because I've heard you talk
Yes.
about passion before. And I think sometimes in relationships we can in order to maybe please the other person, we douse our own passion.
Yes.
But like that to me is one of the like something I've done myself in the past as well. But it's one of the I shouldn't say, but to me it's my perception is one of the worst things we can do, because if we find ourselves passionless, it's very hard to find our purpose,
Yes.
and our purpose
Yes.
guides the day.
Yes. Yes. Wow, that's such a big topic,
I know.
right? For men and women, for everybody, right?
Well,
I would say especially, let me just underscore that and to support what you just said, especially for women, because we tend to be the ones that take on a lot, for right or wrong. Maybe it's self-imposed a lot of times, maybe not, but we're taking care of our children, we're taking care to a certain degree of our mate, our work, and we're taking care of everything. So sometimes, like Dolores and Tina, kind of gets lost in that because we're putting other people's priorities first, and we're earning a living at the same time, of course, and things that we essentially love to do get put on the back burner, right? And sometimes we wake up later on in life, the kids are all grown up, they're all taken care of, they're gone on their own paths. Or maybe, God forbid, we have a death or a divorce or something like that. And then, like, who am I? Right? We're a little bit rudderless. And I've seen that with my clients, with some of my clients. So that's a really important part of life. So how do we kind of find ourselves again? And there's so many ways that we can do that, right? It's, finding something that really resonates with us. I really believe in seeking out personal development, right? Finding somebody that you really resonate with, that is a thought leader on the area. I mean, it could be somebody like, one of my personal favorites is Dr. Wayne Dyer, right? He's so beautiful and like peaceful, and does give good direction. Sadhguru is a really nice, from all these different cultures, right? It's very cool. Somebody like a Tony Robbins or a Jack Canfield. And one thing that I've done as well is I become on this path. I became a facilitator for the passion test. And basically, what we do is we help people kind of reconnect with their purpose, right? And we go through a workshop whereby we help people get closer. It's a process, right? It's work. We work together and get closer to what is really priority for you. What's the most important thing for you? Like, I remember doing with somebody who was a fellow coach, and then we went through the process of completing this sentence. Okay, when my life is ideal, I am. When my life is ideal, I'm out in the glorious sunshine in my garden and just feeling the wind and feeling the sun and with my hands in the earth. Awesome. When my life is ideal, I'm helping my patients to find, I am, whatever that is, right? I'm traveling the world, and I'm just, whatever just gets your juices flowing. So when I did this with a particular client, as I mentioned, who was a coach, what she realized is in her top five, ideal, coaching, we didn't even get in there, right? So she decided to make a pivot, right, based on and it was in the healthcare field. So she got herself re-educated. She was kind of already in there. She got herself at a higher skill level, and she's flying with that right now. Right. So it's just so illuminating in things. And sometimes as moms, we feel guilty if our kids are not in our top five priority, but maybe the kid part is taken care of. It's nothing to feel guilty about.
Yeah.
Maybe they're all taken care of. Let's look at what's working for you right now. So, and the idea is not only to realize that, but how can you bring more of it into your life? The process is called, what is it? Intention, right? You have creating that intention, then attention. First of all, creating intention on what's most important to you, we nail it down to the top 5 things that are a priority, that get your juices flowing, that you love, top 5. And then from there, that's your intention. Write it on like I got my passion list right here. I read it still, and that evolves over time, right? And then top 5, That's your intention. Then attention, do something.
Something.
Put your attention on action steps to bring more of that into your life. Then the last step is magical. No tension. Let it go. Let it go. And don't have any attachment on how things are going to show up in your life.
And I love that. And I hope that people really heed that, because it's the intention bit. And I love Wayne Dyer as well. So that's one thing I think that I'd love to take that in the context of empathy in the workplace, is that sometimes when we have teams and there's no vision, there's no mission in the company, people go in and they're doing their job and there's low employee engagement, and the employee that is not actively engaged at work might have their passion when they go home. They might do all the things that they want at home.
Yes.
But they're just not getting that piece in the workplace. And I think that comes down to like communication. And it's not like all managers have to go find what everyone's passion is on the team. But really, like,
Right.
I love what you said earlier. Like, it's not asking the why is that not done? And why are you not doing this? How can I help you? Is there a way I can
Yes.
bring you? Because it's like, how often do we use the word why when really the most effective way we're going to get what we want from someone is by changing that to how or where or what can I do to help you?
Yes. And when people feel like their teams and their manager especially cares, right? A lot of people at work today don't feel like their managers and their leaders actually care about them. So how can you show your team that you care? Right? Even if it's not a skill that comes to you naturally, because sometimes leaders at work tend to be people who are promoted on the basis of performance as opposed to how they work with teams, right? Herein lies the disconnect at times. So even if it doesn't come natural to you, like the lady who created these assessments, for example, she's what's called a conceptual. So man, oh man, when she sees a problem, she can solve it, but her socialization skills were basically nil, but she's worked on those. And now you think she's the most social person because she's worked on them. She was self-aware and she worked on them. So if it doesn't come naturally for you to be a good leader, a good connector, you can improve on that. And with these types of strategies, and it's reinforcing, right, Dolores, when you try something and it actually works, right? And then it just emboldens you and gives you confidence to continue it with other people or to move along that learning process. So one of the people that I've known that has been extremely successful in connecting with people with his sales team is how he leads every single communication, and it's somebody that's very close to me. So, I would hear him often on the phone saying things like, hey, Steve, like, how's your day been so far? How's family? Right? I heard that, your wife you told me last week that your wife just got a promotion. How's that going for her?
Mm,
Right? The kids just started back at school. How's that been?
mm.
Right? Like, you don't want to get too much into the business of other people at home and all of that necessarily, not in the nitty-gritty details, but showing caring and not just listening to it and then going, oh yeah, they're doing good at school. Oh, then all you go, well, that must be really, you must feel really great. You have that, you guys are really doing something good there. Or, I'm just talking off the top of my head,
Of
but
course.
just, right. But validating like that Oprah thing, right? Validating. People really appreciate when people, when you feel, right, Dolores, when someone's really heard you, right, through the validation because they've kind of gone there with you, it's like your soul starts to sing. I think that's really the keys to the kingdom, really, is when somebody hears you. What a gift. What a gift in that moment. Right? It's probably one of the, I don't know, it's bringing tears to my eyes right now. That's crazy. When somebody you really feel heard, it's like a gift that they've given you, right? Just to give, is it okay if I give a little example?
Of course.
A personal example, actually. So, you know, divorced. I'd been in the dating world for a little while, and one gentleman that I was dating for a little bit, nobody had ever said this to me. We were talking about work and all that, and he said, Tina, oh my God, all of those years you had to learn another language, you were working on straight commission, you built this whole team, you have 90% retention, you're doing really well. He said, but you know what? You must have felt really lonely, and that must have been really tough at times. And I started to cry.
Mm.
Nobody had ever said that to me. Right? It was awesome. I felt so connected at that moment. And that was in a personal relationship. Imagine you can carry that through at work. You can.
Tina, I love the way you speak about that. It's wonderful. And going back to the passion bit and the way you spoke so eloquently about that, I know you love Wayne Dyer, and something that I've heard you quote as well is a quote that I love, and it's like, "Don't die with your music still inside you."
Yes, exactly.
Oh
Ralph
my
Waldo
God,
Emerson. Yeah.
that quote to me, I don't know if I know I read it in one of his books, but like that really, I think helps us to understand the importance of, you know, allowing other people, if we want a team to thrive, if we want our personal relationships to thrive, we can't really power over someone. We have to let them have their music play out in whatever way. And especially when we're on
Exactly.
teams and we're talking about though, and you brought it up earlier, like different jobs will require different skills. We will have a job that requires someone to be process orientated, but we'll also maybe on our team need someone that's more customer orientated, a more people person. Everybody has their own strength. And I think that that's lost sometimes in teams, and the importance of like allowing people. And I think that's the way I look at the passion, but is allowing a person to be passionate with what they're good at. Being the passionate introvert that's very process orientated allows you be so laser focused in what you're doing that you're going to be very motivated,
Yes.
but not forcing someone then to be a people person if they're not.
Yeah, exactly. So a quick example of that, I did the assessment with one of my clients. He's a small business owner, and he was having some clashes with one of his people who was working in a process oriented job where she was taking care of the processes in a factory. They were producing a particular product. And then when we did the assessment, what we could quickly see is that she's a total people person. Right?
Mm.
And she's not detail oriented. That's the last thing that she wants to do, but she's fantastic with customers and with people. And that's where really she thrives. That's her that's her zone of genius, so to speak. So, because it's a small business, he couldn't totally take her out of there, but he gave her, started graduate until he found somebody else that was able to replace her. So sometimes it doesn't mean that an employee is not adept, at working for a particular company. Is finding a different chair for them,
Mm.
right? Different function, and also it took the frustration. He was mad all the time. He said, I'm trying hard to be patient, but that was so easy. Didn't she see? Like, he was so like, how come she doesn't get it? From his point of view, he thought she wasn't engaged, that she wasn't trying, and he was kind of peeved at her because she wasn't trying hard enough. Right. And imagine how she was feeling, and from her point of view, because you could feel he was retaining those words, but you could feel, other people's energy. She knew he was really frustrated at her. And now she's in a role is just so suited for her, and things are going much better at work because of that.
Oh, and that is the core essence of having empathy in the workplace. To me, I know we all perceive things differently, but like that's allowing someone to work from their strengths and to come from a fixed
Yes.
mind, or sorry, a growth mindset and not a fixed mindset. You have to do this. It's like that you said that he had the realization that this is the way she is, and you helped him with that so that then the person is more passionate about their work because they're doing the things they like, and don't we automatically do things to the best of our potential when we're passionate about them, be it whatever it is.
Yes. Yes, you're totally right. So it's made a huge difference. And I mean, just from this client's perspective, he's a conceptual, that like the lady I was mentioning to you, where that came up with this whole program to begin with. She saw a problem in the workplace. She had a tech company, high tech company, and she was seeing a lot of problems in the workplace, and she was wondering why, like my other client, right? Why aren't they just doing their job? Like it's straightforward. I can do this blindfolded. Of course she can, because that's how her mind works. That's her strength. So she saw the problem. So she tried to rectify it, and she created this personality assessment as a result, which is absolutely brilliant and works extremely well, as you can see. Then when she understood why people weren't really communicating well, and did that on her whole staff, changed some seats, there was more camaraderie, there was more trust, and the company functioned much better. Okay, problem solved. And what she realized was her own challenge areas, like I said, was really in understanding other people's strengths, and learning the words, even just learning the words of how to connect with people. How's your day going so far? And not just saying it and then rushing on to the next topic. Really listening, right? Listening to provide feedback. Have you ever read, and I'm sure you have, you're so gifted in this area, Dolores, like the different levels of listening? Stephen Covey, Brene Brown is really amazing on this, and Stephen Covey, the 5 levels of listening, he gives a great example. Lower levels of listening is like ignoring, pretending, selective listening, listening to respond, right? Which is what we just mentioned, as well as empathetic listening. So Stephen looks at this. Okay, so let's say an example of this: you're walking down the road and you see somebody that's fallen in a deep hole. So somebody who's at like a higher level of listening, let's say empathetic listening, will look down and empathize with the person. Oh, I'm so sorry. You're down there in a deep hole. That can't be fun. Would you like a sandwich? Right? Whereas if you're an empathetic listener, what you'll do is you'll find a way how to get down into the hole with the person and say, oh my God, you're right. It is dark and deep and it's scary down here. Right? But I want to let you know you're not alone. I see you. Let's work on this together. Right? So I love these graphic examples to kind of remind us, right, what empathetic listening really is. What do you think?
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's just such a lovely image. And it's true. And as I'm thinking about it here, and going back to something you said earlier, is about, I'm trying to quote the words you said, is that sometimes managers are promoted based on performance and don't have the skills. And again, that is not their fault. So
no.
if someone isn't an active listener, it might be the fact that they listen to you saying that and go, wow, people can learn anything, but managers sometimes are the squeezed people in the middle. They have to listen to the employees, but they also have their targets maybe from above. So, and they often don't have the skills necessary. Can you talk a little bit about that? Or have you worked with managers that you see how to help them become successful in learning those skills like active listening, which you have demonstrated so well there, that are so crucial in order to have empathy and to have high engaging employees?
Yes. So it's really cool, actually. First of all, I congratulate people when they reach out to me or do anything to improve their skills, right? That's really, really important. That indicates an open mind and a willingness to learn. So that's pretty awesome. And secondly, what I say to people is that, you know what, like I think it was Jim Rohn says so well, nobody can do your push-ups for you. Let's get that off the table right now, right? Just because you're talking to me doesn't mean I'm going to wave my magic wand and you're going to get this right away. No, siree. You're going to have to do the work. Are you ready to do the work? Right? And, I'm pretty straightforward with my clients. If you're not doing the work after a certain time, just step aside for a little while. Something's going on and we can reconvene in another time. But the basic premise is that they're open, usually when people come to you like this, and that's a fertile ground to do something with. And starting from there is just talking to them about their existing situation, where they see they're the blocking point, so to speak. I know there's a better expression for this. Like there's a blockage there somewhere in communication, and if we can get them to a level of understanding, and especially agreeing on the fact that connecting with their people and building trust and successful relationships is at the core of a successful business relationship. We all know we're at work to get things done, right? To accomplish the corporate goal, the manager as well. And you know what? It's not a bad thing to help our manager to shine.
For sure.
Right. And realizing that at the same time that it's not the good guys versus the bad guys are on different ends of the street. So the person I just mentioned, like I said, who is so gifted at connecting with people, you know what he did? Probably one of the things that he did the best was validating his boss all the time. You're doing such a great job. Right. And talking to the rest of his sales teams, what can we do to help elevate this person? Because he's a really good person. He's just sometimes, a little bit so caught up in doing his job that he, so they were doing, and he realized that. So knowing that his team was so supportive, guess what? People tend to model your behavior. So it's not about changing other people's behavior necessarily. It's starting with your own. So that's where the power lies, is within you, right? Focus on what you can control. And that's one of my chief strategies as well, or things to keep in mind. Focus on what you can control. So based on that, so I get the engagement of the manager. What can we do that's under your control in order to foster better relationships, et cetera, et cetera. And I always use the assessment, because that's something concrete that they'll always carry with them. And all the strategies are in there as well. If in an ideal situation, we would do the assessment with the team members as well, right? So everybody is kind of understanding each other better. And instead of carrying judgments and assumptions, they're not working as hard as I am. How come they can't just get this done? It's so easy. Right. And not really seeing who the person is and where I did it with one individual, for example, the assessment, and Dolores, she started to cry when we started talking about it.
Deep work.
Deep work. She said, you know what, Tina, I always thought there was something wrong with me. She said, I went to the doctor like multiple times saying there's something wrong with me. Can't you do something? Can you give me a pill or do something? So I'm a little more focused, because my husband and my boss says I'm not focused enough, that and that I do this and I'm distracted. But what we realize is that she's more of a creative type.
Yeah. Right.
She has kind of magical powers, if you will, of being able to really see people and validate them and bring solutions unconventional solutions to the table. She's so creative. We need creativity in life and in the workplace, right? So yeah, making an effort to understand other people, right? I'm not sure if I answered your question.
No, you did, because you totally did, because I can relate to that person, because I am more creative and I'm not always very logical. Well, it's not that I'm not logical, but I think creatively. But I hid that superpower for a long, long time because I didn't feel acceptable. I didn't, because so many people maybe had told me, had looked at me as much, I don't know what she's on about, whatever. But like, that's where I love this kind of work, is that we all have our own superpower, and how we do it. And if we're allowed, bring it to the scene, bring it to the table where we're working. We all need the creatives. We need the people that are the opposite to me, that are the more logical, because we all have a place. So you did totally answer the question. And I've written down lots of things here that I'm going to, I'm going to do a little blog probably, or a little blog post on LinkedIn about this afterwards too, because you've hit so many great points, like focus on what we can control. And for me, that is controlling my, like, let's say, not going into feeling a fraud if I'm not as logical as everybody else on the team, because I might be able to see something more innovative if I'm allowed to have a say. And I think that brings in as well the whole, sorry, now I guess I love these conversations, is like the whole intergenerational aspect on teams as well, where the younger generations, can be more innovative if they're allowed to think outside the box. Neurodiversity is it's a huge area. A lot of people have neurodivergent brains, but they're the out of the box thinkers. Bring them in.
Yes, exactly.
Allow them have their say. We all, when we all are allowed to have our say, what a wonderful world it will be.
Absolutely. And if we could all keep in mind, value, appreciate, and respect everybody, and know for sure, this is an absolute, that everybody has their own zone of genius, right? So what is it? Right? What is it, and how can we work best with it? And what are some good communication tools? Just another quick example. Let's say that you have conflict in the workplace, for example, and you have one person who is like the client or the employee of my client, who was like so outgoing and great with people, and she's not great with deadlines and all that kind of thing. And then working on a project with somebody else who is very detail oriented and structured and want to get things done on time and don't like to be bothered, right? Their multitasking is just gives them a hives. So knowing that you have two people that need to work on a project together, but knowing who they are as a team leader, for example, you could bring them together and say, listen, I really know that you guys have your own strengths, right? Like, Joe, you like to do things in a very structured way. And Aaron, yours is a little bit different. You think outside the box and you're creative. And listen, guys, so you each, as you can see, you each have your zone, where you're really competent. Let's figure out a way, knowing those differences, how can we work this out so that we get the project done on time and that we're able to bring in both of your strengths at the same time and maybe brainstorm with them in that way.
And that is empathy in the workplace.
Exactly. Bingo.
Oh, I love it. Tina, how can people work with you, and what would you like to share today about how people can connect with you and what you can do for them, and where's the best place for them to find you?
Absolutely. So thank you so much for that. And I have my website, tinajesso.com. As well, I have my email is pretty easy. Same thing as the website, tina@tinajesso.com. And it would be my delight to work with anybody who's viewing this show right now. And I can work with people to help them have better success in their relationships, to help them find purpose after a major transition in their lives, or bringing more harmony into the workplace. And I, come with all these years of building teams, seeing what can go right and what can go wrong, and knowing how to pivot, as well as being a Jack Canfield Success Principles teacher and trainer and coach, and being a licensed trainer as well for the Excite Core Genius Assessment. So there's a lot of experience and a little bit of schooling to go along with it, and just
Life experience.
Life experience, exactly. Nothing like it. Yeah.
I love it, Tina.
So there's always a solution. There's always a solution. Yeah.
Well, that's great. And I'm delighted to share your work with people. I mean, I could stay here on this forever talking to you, because we could keep going off avenues, and maybe we'll come back and talk again another time about more things, that all these notes I've taken. We'll find something else to speak about. But for now, thanks so much for giving your insights onto about the importance of empathy in the workplace, because I think it's given people a really good an idea as to it's crucial for employee engagement. As again, probably my third or fourth time saying it, if we want to be productive in the workplace, or if you want to have a productive company, it's important to have motivated, engaged employees. You started the interview with statistic from Gallup, and that's what's showing the real world. Yes. Helping out our managers, having connected people, listening, all these wonderful skills, no judgment, no assuming, being clear. And you can certainly help people focus on what they're good at, what they can control. And I'd welcome people to check out your website and to connect with you should they wish to.
Okay, awesome. It's been a delight. Thank you so much for having me.
As always, Tina, thanks for being here and for sharing all your wisdom with us.
Thank you.